game the bankers and the rich play is different than what they teach you in school. And that's the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You know, my poor dad, PhD, stands for poor, helpless, and desperate. They don't know anything about money. They're teaching our kids. Being an entrepreneur, I was in the rock and roll industry. And back in the 80s, I started studying with a man named Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller, best known for the geodesic dome. So in '67, I hitchhiked from New York City to Montreal, Canada, to see Expo 67. And Buckminster Fuller's dome was the U.S. pavilion there. So Expo 67 was the World's Fair on the Future, and Fuller was a futurist. But I didn't meet him there, and then back in 1981, I finally met him in Kirkwood, California, on a seminar called The Future of Business. And so I studied with him 81, 82, and 83. And I was a hardcore make money entrepreneur. And one day Fuller asked me, he says, "What's your life's purpose?" And I said, "Make money." And how did I know that was the wrong answer? And he scolded me, because here I'm in rock and roll, it's sex, drugs, rock and roll. I don't do drugs, but I was trying for the rest. And he goes, "It's a waste of a good mind just to make money." I'm going, "What do you mean?" He says, "I thought we were supposed to make money." And he just challenged my paradigm, the way I looked at world and the business. He says, and I covered this in Fake, and the question he asked me, he says, "Why don't you do God wants you to do?" I went, "What?" He says, "Humanity is evolving, and you have to ask yourself, what does God want done? Not what Robert Kiyosaki wanted done. What does God want done?" And he kind of scolded me in front of the whole class. I'm going, "So what's wrong with rock and roll?" He goes, "It's about you. It's your passion, but it's not God's purpose." I'm not really religious, I'm not pumping that. So the question, I had to ask myself, what does God want done in the evolution of life? And it came to me, I don't think God wants people to be poor. And today in the world, America especially, there's this gap between the rich and everybody else. And I know the game of the rich. My rich dad taught me, you know it because you're the banker. The game the bankers and the rich play is different than what they teach you in school. And that's the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. My poor dad, PhD, stands for poor, helpless, and desperate. They don't know anything about money. And they're teaching our kids. And my rich dad was an entrepreneur who never finished school. I grew up in Hawaii. So all of the pieces of the puzzle, when Fuller scolded me back in '83, the pieces of the puzzle and my life started to come together. And I understood what he was saying then. He says, well, maybe we should stop ripping people off. It might be a good thing. And, a question I ask all over the world, what does school teach you about money? And the answer is nothing. And that's not a mistake. That's not an accident. I knew that. Most people know that. But the way to keep the poor and middle class working hard is never teach them what the rich know. Well, the reason the rich don't work for money is number one expense is tax. See, there's three kinds of income: earned, portfolio, passive. So earned income is if I get a job, that's earned income. If I'm a doctor or a programmer, that's earned income because I'm working. If I buy, let's say, Apple for $10 and I sell it for $20, that's portfolio income, capital gains.
Yeah.
But passive income, which is cash flow, is never. So it's not, so these guys are screaming right now in America, tax the rich. I said, good luck. Because most of the guys complaining, they don't know there's three kinds of income. And the rich don't have jobs anyway. They have assets. And so the average schmo out there, poor guy, sent the kid to school. They don't learn this. So that's why in Fake, as you were talking about it, is that newspaper article about Jared Kushner. And he explains how the Trumps and the Kushners don't pay taxes and make millions of dollars. And the reporter couldn't understand him because our schools will never teach you that three types of income.
And they judged him and say they're wrong and it's cheating. And we see that over and over again. Amazon not paying taxes. What do you say to people when they come up to you and say, Robert, it's not fair. It's not fair they're not paying tax?
Well, there's always three sides to a coin, heads, tails, and the edge. So which side of the coin are you on? From my side, it's fair. But this is the difference. Everybody can do the same thing I do because the tax laws are for everybody. We don't say, well, the tax laws are only for the rich. No. The tax laws are for everybody to use if you have the right financial education. And the reason I'm an advocate of financial education, without that education, you'll have to pay taxes. You see, very few people will buy what I do, make $1 million and pay zero tax. And my rich dad taught me that playing Monopoly. That's how it started. 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. Or the McDonald's formula. I write about it here. McDonald's, Ray Kroc.
Yeah.
McDonald's is in the real estate business. So they sell hamburgers, but they buy real estate, so they pay no taxes. This guy Bezos, he's $16 billion. How much tax did they pay on that $16 billion?
And that's all legal. Anyone can do it.
Everybody can do it.
But most people lack the education. So
Correct.
Jared learned about money when he was a kid by
Correct.
watching his father, by watching these people invest in real estate, and said, wow, not only do you get to make the money, you get to keep the money. That's a big problem a lot of people don't understand. They, look how much money I made, but how much did you keep? Because that could be half.
How much tax did you?
And so well, you always say this is the law. The law is true for every citizen. You can do it, but most people just don't do it. Sometimes, like you said, they don't have the education, because you need to have a plan if you're going to go do risky things.
Well, it's not risky. I mean, to me, what's risky is having a job and paying taxes and saving money because they're printing it. That's the worst thing of all. And that's why there's fake money, fake teachers, because the teachers will never, they don't know it. And fake assets, because Wall Street or the City of London or Lehman Brothers or Goldman and all, they're not going to tell you that. How are there billionaire bankers today? You know, aren't they supposed to be watching your money? You know, if you really want to be rich, take a class on real estate. And I said, why is that? He says, I didn't know at the time, but once you understand real estate is based on debt. And he says, you will learn how to use debt as money, because that's what happened in 71. The US dollar became debt. So once you learn how to use debt as money, you can never say, I can't afford it. You see, because the banks will give you, so the banks, after the crash of 2008, the banks gave me $300 million tax-free to buy real estate that the idiots had lost. I hate this, and they were idiots because the prices were so high. Why would you buy it at the top of a market? Don't you know that's going to crash? They, oh, no, this is, that was the subprime, was the derivatives market, MBSs and all that stuff, had driven the price of real estate so high, and the rest of us were just waiting. And then when the whole thing came crashing down, all this real estate was now available, and they needed, the Fed and those guys in the Treasury needed guys like us to go in there. So Wall Street gave us hundreds of millions of dollars to mop up all that real estate these guys had lost. Now, it's fair because everybody could do it. So, when I asked the average guy, I said, why don't you use debt? They can't even get a loan because their scores, their FICO scores, I don't even have them here, are so bad. So that's what's going on in the world today. It's fake money, fake teachers, fake assets. The school teachers will never tell you that because they don't know it. My poor dad never knew that. And they think the rich are crooks. The rich just play by different laws. The rules are the same, but you have to do what the government wants you to do.